Hello, my name is Giselle Nano, and for our chapter today, we will be talking about short-term financing. So to start off, the accumulation of funds was discussed as one of the decision-making functions of a finance manager. So fund is accumulated in several ways. It can be done through borrowing short-term or long-term. So in the knowledge of when to borrow money is determined by making a cash budget. So in our chapter, our point of discussion is on short-term financing. So what is a short-term liability? These are obligations that are needed to be repaid in 1 year. And as presented in the balance sheet, it consists of all current liabilities. So what is a current liability? These are obligations that range from the time spontaneous accounts payable are recognized on trade credits and interest is accrued up to the time the debts are obtained. These current liabilities are part of the working capital used by the company within its normal operating cycle. So, on the revised Philippine accounting standards, they provide the following criteria for a liability to be considered as current. So, first, it is expected to be settled in the entity's normal operating cycle. Second, it is held primarily for the purpose of being traded. Third, it is due to be settled within 12 months after the balance sheet date. And lastly, the entity does not have an unconditional right to defer settlement of the liability for at least 12 months after the balance sheet date. So, what are the advantages? Advantages of short-term financing. First, it is easier to arrange. This is because the financial institution granting the loan has a shorter exposure and faces fewer risks. In long-term financing, the risks are higher because of the longer period of time it takes to collect the entire principal. Next is it is less expensive. So the interest rate is lower because the financial institution faces lower risk in terms of the collection period. And the third one is it affords the borrower more flexibility. So in times of declining interest rates, the borrower can avail of the loan on a piecemeal basis to take advantage of lower interest. And what are the disadvantages of short-term financing? First, interest rate fluctuates more often. In times of increasing interest rates, the interest expense borne by the borrower is higher. Second is refinancing is frequently needed. So the documents have to be updated every time a loan is availed or is refinanced. The maximum term under short-term financing is 1 year. And the third one is delinquent payment may be detrimental to the credit rating. So the credit rating of the borrower, which is already experiencing a liquidity problem, may get damaged or harmed. So what are the sources of short-term financing? So there are 9 sources of short-term financing. First is trade credit, stretching of payables, accruals, short-term bank loans, bankers acceptance, commercial finance company loans, commercial papers, receivable financing, and inventory financing. So these sources of short-term financing will be further discussed to the next reporters. That would be all.
So, good day. I am Mycah Jea Escala, and for my part, I will discuss the first two short-term financing form, which are the trade credit and the stretching of payables. So, trade credit um, is actually the most common short-term financing form that is used in business-to-business transaction. It basically means a practice of buying goods or services from a supplier or a seller and deferring the payment for a certain period of time or i-delay nimo ang payment sa mga goods or services na imong gipang purchase. So this will allow the buyer to have an immediate access sa iyang mga gipang purchase na goods or services without the need of immediate payment without the need of immediate payment of cash. So sa invoice is specify sa seller ah, ang mga goods purchased sa iyang buyer, of course, the price, total amount to be paid, and the term of purchase, and then the buyer receives the invoice and signs it as an evidence na nadawat na niya ang mga goods. This means that this term of purchase is the cheapest way of obtaining a short term and considered to be the largest source of short term funds because instead na mag-borrow sa mga financing institution, mga traditional bank, the buyer can easily obtain a loan sa supplier because kung i-compare nimo sa traditional bank sa mga credit facilities, daghan pa kay process na buhaton, daghan pa kay mga document na dapat i-submit. While sa supplier naman, kanang um, madarag negotiate dayon, which is advantage sa buyer. Also, kanang if dili makabayad ang buyer in a certain time, dili siya ma-chargean og interest unlike sa mga credit facilities. The term offered may or may not consist of a discount. For example, 210 and 30. For example, 210 and 30. So if the buyer makabayad siya within 10 days, he can avail a 2% discount. If not, the buyer must pay the full amount on the 30th day. The term of purchase may not include an interest charged by the supplier, but the mere idea of stretching the date of payment from the invoice date is already beneficial to the purchaser. Of course, even though um, wala ka naka-avail of discount, which is supposedly beneficial sa imuha as a buyer, pero kay gi-stretch man or gi-extend ang payment, ang date of payment, this means na ang funds na supposedly pangbayad nimo sa katong utang is pwede pa nimo magamit sa laing transaction while waiting the last day of payment. So to compute for the average accounts payable, annual purchase divided by 360 times the given credit period. The average accounts payable is like finding the average or the middle number of all amounts you owe to your seller. It helps you to know how much money on average you owe to your seller at any given time. So trade credit is a free trade credit if the supplier did not offer any discount and it does not consist of foregoing any discount. Kanang wala jud siya gi-offer ni discount pero gipautang ka. Um, like kanang for example like gipautang ka og lapis pero the fact na gipautang ka pero walay gi-offer na discount, mura ra na siya free sa imuha pero may due date japon, may bayaran japon ka. The thing is dili ka ka-avail og discount kay wala may gi-offer. However, the moment the discount is offered, it becomes a costly trade credit siya because na may offer na discount. For example, MXC purchased merchandise costing 50 pesos per unit on a term of 210 and 30. It can be interpreted that the price comprises primarily of the true price, which is 49 pesos, that can be computed by deducting um, the discount the given discount rate to 100% and then multiply the result to um, 50, which is the cost. So the true price is 49% if paid within the discount period. And the finance charge is 1 pesos. 50 50 pesos multiplied by 2% if not paid within the discount period. But when the purchaser decided to pay within the discount period, the average age of his accounts payable would be at 10 days since mauna ang discount period. If beyond the discount period naman, it would be 30 days. So 30 days minus the 10 days is 20 days, which is the costly trade credit or extra credit to the company for not taking the discount. The finance charge together with the extra credit becomes the nominal cost of trade credit forgone. So nominal cost trade credit forgone mao ni siyang ang additional expense na na-incur sa buyer for not taking the advantage of trade discount na gi-offer sa seller. So nominal cost of trade credit forgone is calculated by determining the discount rate, then subtract the discount rate to 100%, then divide the discount rate um, by the difference. Next is subtract the discount period from the final due date and divide the 360 by the difference. 360 is the constant number representing the number of days in a year. So, for example, ABC Corporation has annual purchase of 1,500,000. This term offered by the supplier was 210 and 30. The discount was not availed by the ABC Corporation, but it always pays on time at the end of the credit period. We are required to 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 compute how much is the balance of accounts payable of ABC Corporation if it paid within the discount period. And how about beyond the discount period? Number two, what is the nominal cost of trade discount forgone? What about the effective cost of trade discount forgone? So to answer, to answer the number one, we will use the average accounts payable formula. So if paid within the discount period, we will use the 10 days, which is the discount period. So annual purchase 1,500,000 divided by the 360 days since wala may gi-specify kung unsa ang gamiton 360 ba or 365. So kay mao man ni constant man ni gamiton. Then multiply the result by 10 days. So the accounts payable within the discount period is 41,667 points 41,666.67 pesos. If paid naman beyond the discount period, we will use the 30 days. Kay beyond naman siya sa discount period. So annual purchase 1,500,000 divided by the 360 days multiplied by 30 days, which is the final due date. So the result is 125,000. This will be our accounts payable, average accounts payable if paid beyond the discount period. So number two, nominal cost of trade discount forgone. So the first we will identify or determine the discount rate. The discount rate is 2%. So we will subtract the discount rate from 100%, then divide the discount rate by the difference. And then subtract the discount period, which is 10 days, from the final due date, which is 30 days, then divide the 360 days by the difference. So The nominal cost of trade discount foregone is 36.73%. For effective cost of trade discount foregone, we will divide the 2% by or the 0.02 by 0.98 to find the proportion of the discount, raising the sum of 1 and that fraction to the power of the time period, and subtracting 1, which results to 86%. Another example is ABC Corporation considers availing of the discount on a credit term offered by the supplier. The terms are for 10 and 60. At the time the term is offered, the borrowing rate in the market is 12% per annum. The question is, should ABC Corporation avail the offered discount? So our analysis would be as follows. We will use the we will use the nominal cost of trade discount foregone formula. So that the determined discount rate is 4%, we will subtract it to from 100%, then divide the discount rate by the difference, and then subtract the discount period, which is 10 days, from the final due date, which is 60 days, then divide the 360 by the difference. So the nominal cost of trade discount foregone is 30%. So the question, should ABC Corporation avail of the offered discount? Yes, because the borrowing cost is 12%, which is lower than the nominal cost of trade discount foregone, which is 30%. Advantages of trade credit. Number one is it is immediately available from suppliers. So, unlike sa mga financial institutions, sa mga bangko, na daghan pa kayo og mga paperwork. So, um, it is immediately available from suppliers because less hassle siya. So, advantage siya sa um, buyer. Number two, collateral is not needed, means that the buyer can easily access borrowing to the seller or supplier. So, simple ra kayo ang pag-borrow or simple ra kayo ang borrowing process o um walay risk sa imong mga assets kay no collateral needed man. Next is no interest is charged, although there is an implicit cost to the company if the discount is foregone. Basically, walay interest charge na i-add sa credit amount. However, na ay implicit cost if the buyer did not take the discount. Then kana siya na implicit cost is mao na siya ang missed opportunity to save the money if gitake ang trade discount na gi-offer sa seller. Next is it can be paid off easily because of the amount involved. This is because the trade credit offer oh this is because the trade credit often kanang involves smaller amount of money. So, dali ra kaayo mabayaran sa nangutang. Plus, wala pa jud siya'y interest charge. Next, it is easy to obtain. Yes, kay simplified ra kayo ang application process compare sa mga traditional banks and because available ra sad siya ang trade credit sa mga small businesses. And lastly, trade creditors are usually generous or supportive in the event of financial difficulties. So, easy access ra kayo ang trade credit. However, there are disadvantages of trade credit. Number one, there is a possibility of not availing of the discount due to financial problems. Because if the company is facing financial problem or ang buyer is nag-face of financial problem, dili sila dali makabayad within the discount period. They will end up paying the full amount because of their financial problem. Next is the buyer avails of a discount but at a disadvantage due to a lower implicit cost as compared with a higher cost of the bank credit. This means na if mo rely lang ang buyer always sa trade credit, dili siya makabuild og strong credit history. Strong credit history sa mga banks since higher cost man ang bank credit compare sa trade credit. Then lastly, not paying within the discount period may lead the company to a lower credit rating because it can increase the overall cost of the trade credit and will damage the business credit rating and its reputation. Next, the factors considered in trade credit. First is the market condition because when the economy is down, mapektuhan man sad ang pricing. The terms of payment, cash flow management, maglisod ang company sa pag-collect og mga receivables uh, and then there will be lesser businesses or suppliers or seller na mag-offer og trade credit if ma-down ang economy. Next is financial liability. Compare sa mga financially kanang stable na mga businesses, buyers who are considered as financially weak may find it difficult to access trade credit because the seller is need sila og protection sa ilang business from bad debt loss. Next, competitiveness. The seller needs to offer favorable credit terms to generate more sales because if less favorable ang credit trade credit terms, it can lose or it can cost to lesser customers. Number four, nature of the product because it can affect the ability of the buyer to resell the product and generate cash flow para mabayaran sa niya ang trade credit. Lastly, the nature of demand and supply. Because it affects the bargaining power of the buyer and the seller. If the supply is greater than the demand, then a more favorable credit term is expected. So the second short-term financing form is the stretching of payables. Basically means a practice of extending the payment period to the suppliers beyond the expected due date without obtaining penalties. This form of short-term financing helps the company to reduce the cost of trade credit forgone. For example, if the seller gave a credit term of 3, 10, and 30, the cost of trade trade discount forgone would be 55.67% if wala gi-extend sa buyer ang due date. So we will use the 30th day as a final due date. So that is the cost of discount forgone if wala gi-extend ang due date or ang payment date. But if the company will not pay on the 30th day and instead will prolong the payment until 45th day, the cost of discount forgone will be 31.81% if gi-extend. So, gi-extend man, gamiton nato ang extended period as the final due date, which is the 45th day. So notice that once the payment is extended, the cost of discount forgone will get lower. So sa wala gi-extend, it was 55.67%. Sa gi-extend na, it is 31.81%. And this will decline the cost of trade discount forgone. But there are risks associated with kanang extension of payment or stretching of payables. It will entail a greater risk of losing the trust of its suppliers if this will become a regular practice of the company. Because this could lead to suppliers demanding stricter credit terms, and it can also damage the company's reputation, which will result to kanang losing of investors. Next, reduction of the company's credit rating because investors and leaders can perceive an idea na ang company is dili naka-avail og loan kay sige na lang siya extend og payment, meaning um, dili maayo ang iyang kanang financial stability. So naa sila'y for poor financial management. So that is about stretching of payables. So that is for my part. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Charlene Acuyan, who will discuss accruals and short-term bank loans. So, accruals is one of the type of the short-term financing, and we are already familiar with the term accruals. So, when we say accruals, these are expenses that already incurred but not yet paid off by the company, such as salaries, wages, taxes, and interest. So, the accrued interest payment is another short-term another source of short-term financing. So the company enters into agreement with the financing institution to pay interest on its borrowing. So the interest accrues every day, but the payment of the interest will take place upon reaching the agreement time of payment, and the delay of interest may also provide a short-term fund for the company. So here is an example. So FLT Corporation obtained a 60-day short-term loan amounting to 1 million. So the interest charge here is 12% per annum. The loan was released on March 1, 2019 and will mature on April 30, 2019. So the interest should be paid at the end of the term, which is 60-day short-term loan. Using the formula interest equals to principal rate times time, the answers are the follows. On March 15, 2019, is computed equals to the 1 million principal times rate of 12% times time of 15 divided 30, 60 days equals to 5,000. And on March 30, 2019, is 1 million times 12% times 30 divided 360 days equals to 10 million. And April 15, 2019 is 1 million times 12% times 45 because 15 plus 30 is 45 and divide to 360 which is to 15,000. So in the given example, the FLT Corporation has able to obtain a short-term on financing amounting to 5,000, 10,000, and 15 on March 15, 30, and April 15, respectively. So instead of paying the interest on the mentioned dates, the company has a advantage of using these funds. So however, on April 30, 2019, the company is obliged now to pay the principal plus interest, the interest for 60 days amounting to 1,020,000. Now let's proceed to the next type of short-term financing, which is the short-term bank loans. So the short-term bank loans refers to the borrowing agreements made by the business or individual with the bank or financial institution for a relatively short duration. So these are the loans that are typically used to cover immediate funding needs or to bridge the temporary cash flow gaps. So these are the loans that secured from the banks which are payable in 1 year. So the loans is obtained from the bank are paid off on a maturity dates or installment. So the interest on the other hand is collected either in advance or at the end of the term. So these are the several types of financing offered by the banks. So the first one is unsecured loans. So in bank terms, unsecured loans is a clean loan. So these are not backed up with any form of collateral as a security. So unsecured loans do not require the borrowers to pledge assets such as property, equipment as a guaranteed repayment, but instead the loan is granted based on the borrower's credit worthiness, income, financial history, and ability to repay. So since these unsecured loans are not backed up by the collateral, they are considered riskier for the lenders. So to compensate with this increased risk, lenders typically charge higher interest rates compared to secured loans. So, on the other hand, the next is the secured loans are the types of bank financing where the borrowers provide a collateral as a security of the loan. So the collateral serve as a guarantee that lenders can seize or sell in case the borrower fails to repay the loan. So secured loans requires the borrowers to pledge assets such as real estate, vehicles, investments, and other properties as a collateral. So the value of the collateral determines the maximum loan amount that can be borrowed. So if the borrower defaults on the loan, the lender has the right to seize and sell the collateral to recover the outstanding debt. So the third one loan is the credit lines. So it is a periodic basis, normally for 1 year and up to specific period. So the loan is given in a lump sum or the piecemeal basis. So provided that this will not exceed the amount of the loan granted. So bank normally requires a compensating balance for this loan, and then the compensating balance is percentage of the amount borrowed to be placed on a lower earning interest deposits of the bank, such as the current and or saving accounts. So this type of bank financing, it provides the borrower with a predetermined maximum amount of funds that they can access as needed. So it functions similarly to a credit card, but typically involves a higher credit limits and may offer a more favorable interest rates. So the last one is the installment loans. So it is a type of a loan granted by banks to accompany an installment basis. So these are loans that are paid in time or as period series, such as monthly, quarterly, or semi-annually. So the payment consists of principal plus interest. So in making the payment, the bank may use either a straight line or a scientific method. So the first method is this. The first the first method is the straight line method. This is the method with the fixed principal every periodic payment. So it is computed by dividing the principal by the number of periods. So added the principal payment is the interest payment, which is computed based on the outstanding balance. So here is an example. On January 1, 2019, RCBC credited the amount of Phoenix Corporation for the amount of 120,000. And the principal is payable in 4 equal quarterly payments plus interest based on the outstanding balance. So an amortization table shows that the principal and interest payment assume that the interest rate is 12% per annum and the payment starts on April 1. So for January 1 in this table, for January 1, the outstanding balance is 120,000. And in April 1, 2019, as cited in the problem, the interest is 12%. So on start on April 120 divide 4, because since it is 4 equal quarterly payments, so the principal payment would be 30,000. So the interest payment is 360. It is because the principal of 30,000 is multiplied by 20% of the interests. So we can get of 3,600. So, ang principal payment of 30,000 plus interest payment of 3,600 is equal to 30,600. So, that will be the total payment for April 1, 2019. So, on July 1, 2019 is the same procedure, use the same procedure, which is the principal plus the interest payment of 2,700 equals to 32,700. So on January 1, 2020, the outstanding balance would be zero. That is why, because the the period is covered only for equal quarterly payments. So the next method is the scientific method. This method is in which the total payment per period is equal. So the principal payment is obtained by deducting the interest from the total payment. So this kind of method usually used a present value annuity one. So let us now proceed to the compensating balance. So compensating balance is a minimum balance of a company's current or saving amounts required by the lending bank. So there are types of compensating balance. So first is the activities related to the account holders account, and then activities related to bank accounts. So when we say activities related to bank holders account is these balances maintains on account in the depositor. So in simple terms, there's a minimum balance requirement that the banks may impose on account holder. So the bank may impose these requirements as a condition for providing a certain banking services or to offset the costs associated with maintaining the account. So the purpose of this is to ensure that the bank has a certain level of funds available, that the funds from the account holder to offset costs, mitigate risks, or to provide certain benefits. So typically applicable to regular deposit accounts, such as this checking and then the saving accounts. So for example, if the bank requires a compensating balance of 10% on 10,000 account, so the cardholder must maintain the minimum balance of 1,000. Because 10,000 times 10,000 times 10% is 1,000. So therefore, the account holder must maintain a minimum balance of 1,000 according to the compensating balance on the accounts holders account. So the next type of compensating balance is the compensating balance on bank credits. So it is a compensating balance directly associated with the loan activities of the customers. So typically it is expressed in the average daily balance ranges from 10% to 20% of the loan, depends on the credit standing of the company. So it is the minimum balance requirement that the company may impose on the borrower's account naman. So when extending the credit or a loan. So it is conditions set by the bank for the borrower to maintain a specific minimum balance in their account with the bank. So the purpose is to provide collateral security for the loans, reduce the bank's risk, and ensure that the borrowers has a certain level of funds on deposits. So typically, applies to the credit facilities such as business loan, lines of credits, or any other forms of lending. So, for example, a company borrows a 500,000. So the bank requires a compensating balance of 10,000. So the company account should maintain the average daily balance of 50,000. Kaya so 500,000 times siya sa 10%, which is 50,000. So to compute the amount of compensating balance, here is the particular formula. So amount to be borrowed equals to the total needed divided by 1 minus C, which is C um, is a compensating balance. So here's another example. So Gilmore Corporation needs 250,000 to bridge the gap in their working capital. So Bonifacio Bank is willing to give Gilmore a loan but requires a compensating balance of 20%. So how much is the amount to be borrowed to meet the corporation's needs? So 250,000 divide 1 minus 0.20, this is a 20%, equals to 312,500. So although the Gilmore Corporation needs only a 250 to support its working capital, so the company has to borrow the entire amount of 312,500 to cover the compensating balance required by the Mefash Bank. So thus the company is the equal balance, has a compensating balance is equals to 62,500 because ang 312,500 i-times mo sa 20%. So let us proceed now to the interest rates. This is the next topic. So it is the amount charged to the borrowing company for the use of funds for the bank. So interest in a short-term loans is varies depending on the months and loan. So the interest of competition among the banks and the financial capability of the company and the reasons for borrowing. So the common basis of computations of the interest is the prime interest. So the prime interest, one is siya ang lowest charged by the bank and offered only to its most valued clients. So there are methods of interest charging. So first is add-on interest. So the interest is computed based on outstanding loan balance and whatever interest compound is added to the principal payment. So may siyang interest that is typically computed over the entire loan term and added to the principal. So resulting in a fixed installment payment throughout the loan duration. So this means that the borrower pays the interest on the original principal or the entire loan term, even as the principal decreases each payment. So here is a particular example in the add-on interest. So assume that the loan of 150,000 has been added on interest of 12% for 90 days. So compute for the interest due and the total payment required on the 90th day. Use the 360 days in a year. So interest with the formula interest equals to principals times rate times time. So 150,000 times 12% times 90 days divided by 30 is 4,500. So on the maturity date, the total payment would be the principal plus interest because as mentioned, add-on interest. So principal plus interest is 150,000 plus 4,500 is 154,500. So the payment on the face value of the loan is increased by the amount of interest. So the next interest is the discount interest. The interest compound is immediately deducted from the amount of the loan. So when the payment is on interest is made, the proceeds from the loan are reduced and the effective interest rate that is indicated. So the borrower receives money lower than the face value sa loan. So this discounted interest, a method of calculating interest of the loan or credit where ang interest is paid to the outstanding balance over time. So as the principal is gradually paid down, the interest is applied to reduce the principal amount, so resulting to the decreased interest expense over time. So here is an example. Assume a loan of 150 with this discounted rate of 12% for 90 days. So compute for the interest discount amount of the loan. So using 360 days in a year, how much should be paid on the 19th day. So using also the formula, interest equals principal times rate times height, 150,000 times 12% times 90 days divide 360 is 4,500. So the discount amount is principal minus, giminus naman siya. Principal minus interest is 150 minus 450 equals to 145,500. So the loan payment on the 19th date will be 150 because 145,500 times 4,500 would be 150. So that would be for my part. Thank you for listening.
So, let's discuss the cost of commercial bank financing. So, when we say the cost of commercial bank financing is measured in terms of the effective interest rate. This is the actual rate charged by banks or other lending institution on the borrower. So, the following variable used in the effective interest rate are as follows. First is the interest amount. Second is the interest rate. So when we say interest amount is when you put your money in savings account. Interest is the return you receive your savings from the bank. When we say interest rates, indicate this cost or return as a percentage of the amount you are borrowing or lending. Since you are lending your savings to the bank. Third is the days loan outstanding. So when we say this, it means the amount that is left to be repaid on any loan. So four is the method of interest charge. So when we say it is a method of how you pay your interest. And there are the fifth is the type of loan. So when we say the type of loan, we have a student loan, mortgage loans, and etc. Let's move on to the next topic, which is the effective rate on add-on interest. So when we say this, it is the getting the effective rate with an add-on interest. It is the most basic computation in calculating loans and charging interest. So it is simple enough. See problem example in your screen. So example here. So as you can see, I will read it. A loan with an interest amounting to 15,000 per annum on a $150,000 loan for a year will have an effective rate of 10%. So however, this is only true if the loan is good for a year. Assuming that 15,000 interest carries a 90-day loan, what will be its effective rate? So we will look out for the effective rate. So in the next slide, as you can see, so there is a formula and a solution on how to get the effective rate with add-on interest. So the formula is the interest divided by principal times days in a year divided by days in loan is outstanding. So since our interest here in the problem is 15,000, so and the principal is 150,000, we will times it to 360 divided by 90. So since our days in a year is to be considered as 360 and the days loans in outstanding we have in the problem given is 90. So we will divide the 15,000 divided by 150,000 times 360 divided by 90 and we will get the 40% and that will be the effective rate with add-on interest. So let's discuss the effective rate on discounted interest. So if the discounted loan is to be applied in getting the effective interest rate, the previous slide will be the formula. Still, we use the same formula, except is the interest is deducted immediately from the principal. So using the same example, so let's read it. A loan with an interest amounting to 15,000 per annum on a 150,000 loan for a year will have an effective rate of 10%. However, this is only true if the loan is good for a year. Assuming that 15,000 interest carries a 90-day loan, what will be its effective rate. So let's looking for the effective rate of discounted interest. So as you can see here in the next slide, in this, there is a formula. So the difference between the formula before is wala siya ang principal is wa siya gimaynosan og interest, right? And here in the discounted interest, as you can see, there is the principal is being deducted by the interest. So the formula of this is interest divided by principal minus interest times days in a year divided by days loan it's outstanding. So the solution to get the problem is that we know the interest is 15,000 and the principal is 150,000. So let's minus the 15,000, which is the interest. Our 15,000 is the interest, times 360 divided by 90, and we will get the 44.44%, and that is our effective rate with discounted interest. So remember that, or i-note ninyo nga the effective interest rate on a discounted loan is higher than that of the loan using an add-on interest. So dapat inyo na siya i-remember or i-note ninyo nga ang discounted loan nga mas dako pa na siya o percentage which is higher than the add-on interest. So nakita ninyo ganina nga ang sa add-on interest ang iyang effective interest is 40%, while ang sa discounted loan is 44%. So, dapat mas dako ang discounted loan. So, na siya reason. So, the reason is that the principal, which is the base for the computing the rate, has a smaller amount. Mauna siya, guys. I-take note yun na ninyo, okay? So, to discuss the next topic, so our next topic is the effective rate with compensating balance. So, as previously mentioned, the formula to compute for the loan to be borrowed is the amount needed divided by. So, here is 1 minus C. So, the same concept will be applied in this case, except that the numerator this time is the interest. So, atong numerator karon is the interest rate. So, the loans with the required compensating balance increase the effective rate of the loan. So, let's have an example here in our screen. So let's read it. So, assume that a company is charged 9% on its own loan for 1 year with a compensating balance of 15%. So, note na 15%. So, what is the effective rate with the compensating balance? So, in this next slide, here is the formula and solution on how to get the effective rate with compensating balance. So it is the interest rate minus 1 divided by 1 minus C. So, what is the C? So, when we the C, it is the compensating balance. So, note na dyan na siya nga ang C is the compensating balance. So, what is our interest rate? So, itong interest rate is the 0.09. I-divide na to siya o 1 minus 0.15. Mamaya na to ang compensating balance, ang 15%. So, ang 15%, mo na siya decima, may mo siya 0.15. So, to get that is 0.09, imo na siya i-divide ang 1 minus 0.15 and you will get the 10.59%. Mao na siya atong effective rate with compensating balance. So, other than that, we have another way of computing the effective rate with compensating balance. So, here is our example. So, Connelly Corporation is paying 100 interest for 120 days on a 1,000 loan with a compensating balance of 10%. So, required, how much is the effective rate? Second is assuming that the compensating balance earn an interest of 8 per annum. What is the effective rate? So, our formula here is the effective rate with compensating balance is equals to interest divided by principal minus C. So, nadiri na siya, lahi na siya. Instead nga, if wala tong interest rate, kaya mo itong gabiton, interest over principal minus C, yung katong days in a year, divided by days in loan outstanding, where atong C is the compensating balance. So let's look for the how much is the effective rate daw. So our effective rate is here is the 33.33%. So 33.33%. So how do we get that? So using the formula is our interest is 100 divided by principal nato nga 1,000 minus compensating balance nga 100 nya times ato 360 divided by 120 kay mao na siya ang nasa problem. So we will get the 33.33%. Tapos number 2 is the assuming that the compensating balance earns an interest of 8% per annum, what is the effective rate daw? So, should the compensating balance maintain in the bank earn interest? So, the interest income will be deducted from the interest payment in the numerator. So, let's times either kani I interest is equals to 1,000 times nimo siya sa 120 divided by 360, we will get the 24.44%. Tapos, atong effective rate is 100 minus 26.67 divided by 1,000 minus 100 times 360 divided by 120, we will get the same amount, which is the 24.44%. And that's how you get the effective rate with compensating balance. You will choose either of two formula. Okay, gets? There is another example on this assumption that the interest is an add-on interest. So in this case, a situation where the loan is a discounted loan. The interest amount should be included in the denominator as at those applying the effective interest rate on discounted loan with a compensating balance should be 37.50%. So how do we get that is the 100 divided by 1,000 minus 100 times 360 divided by 120, we will get the 37.50%. So that is another example on how to get the compensating balance. So the next topic is the effective rate on installment loan. So as mentioned earlier, an installment loan is an obligation where principal payments are made in series. So financial institution normally charge interest on add-on basis. So to compute the effective interest rate of this installment loan, so the formula is the effective interest rate on installment loan is equals to 2 times annual number of payments times interest divided by total number of payments plus 1 times principal. So, and the next slide is the problem, which is the on how to determine the effective rate on installment loan. So let's read it. So Concon borrowed 15,000 on a 12-month installment basis with a total monthly payments applicable to interest and principal. So the interest rate charged by the lending institution is 12% per annum daw. So 12% per annum. Thus, the interest will be 1,800 for 1 year. Since this is an add-on interest, so the total payment will have a face value of 16,800 for 1 year with a monthly payment of 1,400. So how do we get the 1,400? So 16,800 divided to 12 since the 1 year is have 12 months, right? So we will get the 1,400. So the interest has been computed in advance and added to the principal in order to arrive at the monthly payment. So the principal amount of the loan could have been used for only a month, but the interest computation is based on the principal amount of a loan and not on a diminishing balance. So a 1,400 payment per month inclusive of interest and principal, and without actually using the 15,000 for 1 year, gives an approximate outstanding loan balance of only 7,400. Thus, the effective interest rate is as follows. So to compute this here is our solution to get it. So we all know how to get the effective rate on a student loan, and we know what is the formula. So the formula is right ganitong ganina. So our 2 is given as just a formula. What is our 12? The 12 is the annual number of payments, right? So and our 1,800 is the interest. And our divided by 13, which is the problem ganina nga na ay 13, right? Times principal. O ngano na 13 na total number of payments. Since ang 12 months na to, i-add na to 1, so nahimo siyang 13. Nga i-times og 15, which is our principal. So to get that is 2 times 12 times 1,800 divided by 13,000. Divided by 13 times 15,000. My bad. So, is equals to 22.15%, and that is our effective rate on installment loan. So, remember that the formula of each effective rate, right? Okay, noted na ninyo. So, our next topic is what we call bankers acceptance. So, when we say banker acceptance are mainly used for transactions to finance the shipment and handling of merchandise between exporter and importer. Muna siya according to Melcher and Arthur 2003. So, these are considered as type of short-term financing because they mature in less than a year, normally less than 180 days. So this kind of security entails a small amount of risk because of the banking made by the importer's bank. So let's see an example. So a Philippines company that wants to import goods amounting to 100,000 from an American company. So the Philippine company enters to an agreement with the American company for the latter to grant credit for 90 days from the shipment date. So once the credit is granted, in order to be assured that it will be paid, so the American company will ask the Philippine company to apply for a letter of credit authorizing it to draw a 90-day drop from the importer bank. The Philippine company, once it satisfied its own bank, for example, RCBC, regarding its credit standing, must sign a contract promising to pay amount of drop plus any related fees. RCBC then issues the letter of credit addressed to the American company authorizing it to draw a draft payable in 90 days amounting to 100,000. So the letter of credit received by the American company stipulates certain conditions regarding to the exportation of goods. Failure on the part exporter to fulfill the conditions set in the letter of credit will release the bank from its obligation to accept the draft to be drawn. So that's all about of the banker acceptance. So hopefully you will remember all of this topic I've been discussing, and the next reporter will be discuss the other topic about the short-term financing.
So, commercial finance company loans. So, in these situations, such as when credit is unavailable from banks, a company in their financial straits has to go to other financing or lending institutions. Because of the risky nature of company, financing or lending institutions charge interest rates higher than commercial banks. Collateral such as accounts receivable, inventory, or fixed asset are sometimes attached for security reasons. So next, we have the commercial papers. So a commercial paper is a type of a short-term financing that is issued with an unsecured promissory note. So only those companies processing the higher credit ratings can issue a commercial paper. So this is also sold at a discount in form of a short-term promissory note and have a maturity date that varies from 1 to 9 months. So commercial papers also has a lower interest than other banks do. So this is because only large and financially stable companies can issue them. So ang commercial papers can mag-charge siya og lower interest because kung gamay raman ang makakuan is because only those companies that is financially stable can issue them. And then commercial papers gives less borrowing cost to the issuer. This does not establish good relationship between the borrower and the lender because the transaction between parties is purely impersonal. So next is the receivable financing. So it allows the companies an elbow room to raise money out of its current receivable. So we have common forms of receivable financing. First is the pledging of accounts receivable. Second one is the assignment of accounts receivable. Third one is factoring of account receivable. And the fourth one is discounting of promissory note. So first is the pledging of accounts receivable. This is a process of using receivables as loan collateral. So this pledging is done through a non-notification basis, which means that the company's customers are not informed that their account or their obligation to the company is attached as collateral. So those customers sa company is wala sila na-inform na ilahang account or ilang obligation is being attached na as collateral. So muna siyang non-notification basis, so wala sila gi-inform. So while assignment accounts receivable, it is a process in which the borrower or the assigner assigns the accounts receivable to the creditor or the assignee as collateral to the loan. Assignment is executed by assigning a security agreement transferring receivables to the creditor. It may be in a form of non-notification and notification basis. So, like sa pledging of accounts receivable, ang customer sa company is wala sila na inform nga ilang account is ma-attach siya as collateral, and then dili na siya ilang ownership is dili na ma-transfer, muna siya pledging. While ang assignment of accounts receivable kay koan siya kanang ma-retain nila ang ilang ownership, and then the company will inform them or will notify them. So that is the difference between pledging and assignment of accounts receivable. So the other receivable financing, which is factoring of accounts receivable and discounting of promissory notes, will be discussed to the other reporter. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Engineer Arcala and will be discussing about the factoring of accounts receivable. Under this form of financing, there is an outright sale of accounts receivable to the bank or financing company called a factor. In a factoring arrangement, a company sells its accounts receivable on what recourse basis. This means that a financing company assumes full responsibility for collecting the accounts receivable, and in the event of non-collecting, the financing company can no longer collect from the seller company. Thus, the purchaser passes all the credit and collection risk to the factor. Due to the nature of the transaction, the customers with factored accounts are notified and required to pay directly to the factor. However, in some instances, notification is not made so that the company avoids making a negative or poor impression on the consumers. Note is an unconditional promise in writing to pay on demand or at a future date a definite sum of money. The note may specify the maturity date or indicate if the amount is payable on demand. A promissory note is a negotiable financial paper. It can be sold to a bank or lending agency that specified discounting rate. It's either interest bearing and non-interest bearing. An interest bearing note includes the face value plus the interest. If not, the note is non interest bearing, the maturity is the same with the face value. So we have a discuss about discounting of promissory note. A promissory note, we have here our example in factoring of accounts receivable, which is Sarah General Merchandise factors its receivable amounting to 5,000 with 5% commission on FLT Financing Corporation. An interest rate of 2.5% per month is charged to on 90% of the accounts receivable advance of the financing company. How much is the total cost of factoring? So we have commission, which is 500,000 times 0.5, which is the commission, then which is the answer is 25,000. Add with interest expense, which is 500,000 times point 90, which is 450,000 times point 0.025, which is 11,250. So let's add, the total is 36,250. So it should be noted that the commission is computed based on the entire amount of the receivables, which is the 5,000, while the interest is charged on the cash advance by the financing corporation amounting to 450,000. So let's discuss about important features of promissory note, which is the we have six important features of promissory note as follows. First is the face value. It's a common amount of loan to be paid on the maturity date. Second is the maturity date. It refers to the date on which is note is written. Third is the maturity date, which is it specifies the date of payment as agreed by the borrower and lender. Fourth is the interest rate, which is the cost of borrowing. Third is the creditor. It indicates who accept the promissory note and whom payment will be made. The debtor, which is identify the borrowers who signed the promissory note. So we have an example here. Hart Corporation has a note of 250,000 dated January 1, 2012. The note will be due in 120 days with an interest of 99%. If Hart Corporation sells the note on May 31, 2012, the RCBC capital charging a discount rate of 5%. How much is the net profit of the promissory note? So we have maturity date is face value plus interest. So we have a face value of 250,000 times which then for the interest is we compute 250,000 times 0.09, which is the interest, then the note interest of the note, then 120 divided by 360, which is the days of the note divided by the year, the days of the year, then we have arrived 407,500. So 250,000 plus 7,500 is 257,500. Discount is we can with this we will compute the discount, which is 557,500 times 0.05, which is the discounted rate for the RCBC charging of discount rate of 5,000 times 30 over 360, which is the note is 30 days after the after after the releasing of note, which is answer is 1,072.92. So we will we will compute the maturity date, net proceeds, which is maturity value minus discount, which is 257,500 minus 1,072.92, which is the answer is 256,427.08. The next is inventory financing. Inventory financing happens when a company has nothing to offer as collateral for a loan. Inventory as collateral requires consideration of marketability, perishability, and market price stability to give assurance that such inventories can be liquidated in an amount sufficient to recover the loan in case of non-payment. The merchandise should never be subject to rapid obsolescence. A good collateral inventory is one of the relative standard that can be sold by other entities apart from the marketing organization of the company. There are types of mar- invest inventory financing. The first one is floating linian. Floating linian is also called as blanket linian. Is a type of inventory financing where the creditor has claim on the inventory as a whole without specifying the kind of inventory that is being attached. It does not play a major role in obtaining the loan. Identifying a particular inventory is not necessary. The second is warehouse receipt. Under this agreement, goods are specified, segregated, and stored in a public or terminal warehousing company. The debtor who secures the warehouse instructs the warehouse keeper to issue a warehouse receipt to the creditor signifying that the inventory is attached as collateral has been delivered and under their custody. Third is the trust receipt. Under this scheme of inventory financing, although the title of the inventory is retained by the creditor, the debtor is authorized by the former to use the inventory for production or selling, provided that whatever proceeds from the use of inventory entrusted to the debtor will be remitted immediately. The inventory that serves as collateral is specifically marked and identified by serial number. That's all for my report. Thank you.